Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet. That's a good answer. Your answer
Not sweet.
Just pretty sweet.
Sweet.
Today is exciting.
Why is that?
Because this is one of our favorite types of episodes. It's the Ask Us Anything.
Oh, nice.
And these questions, if you don't know, if you've never heard one of these, come directly from people inside of our training camp.
Yes. Training camp makes it so that one of the features of the many features of training camp is that you can ask us questions and we answer them, and we'll continue to answer them on here, and then even more in depth in writing oftentimes, and there's conversation about all these different questions, and you can get on for free at base camp in what we call base camp, which is kind of like the base camp of training camp.
The mountain metaphor.
And it's kind of a mountain metaphor, and I think, what is that? It's at stsi.pro.
And then you can talk to anybody in there
Ask
and
questions.
also to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready? We have 8 fabulous questions. What makes a problem a wicked problem, and what determines it? And at what point, if ever, would we consider that problem to be tamed, right? So let's just start first with the traditional definition of a wicked problem, which we know from
Riddle and Weber.
are
Yes.
things like a wicked problem has fuzzy boundaries, it has a lot of stakeholders, is it a lot of interconnections and therefore unintended consequences. The other thing that's important about them is, and this is a little bit harder for people, you don't really solve them, you actually sort of, tame them, or you sort of ameliorate a condition.
Yeah, you might lessen it.
You lessen a condition. It's not something that's really solvable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of traditional view of what a wicked problem is.
We should put this in some wider context, right? Because people talk about wicked problems a lot. And I think it's a relatively interesting construct. It seems to resonate with people. Oh, we have a wicked problem. It's harder to solve these types of problems for these various reasons. And certainly what Riddle and Weber laid out was, thoughtful and interesting. At the same time, all that positive stuff, said, the Riddle and Weber's paper was just a paper. It was not a research project. It was not an experiment. It was not empirical. It was basically their opinion on these things called wicked problems. And to my understanding, very little has happened since on this construct, other than just citing Riddle and Weber. And so there is no sort of scientific definition of what constitutes a wicked problem and what doesn't, and when does a wicked problem become a not wicked problem or a tamed problem, or all that kind of stuff. This is all just conceptual. And again, it can be conceptual and useful, and that's fine. But I don't want people to take it too far, thinking that there's this definition of what a wicked problem is. As an example, complexity, that also relates to us and resonates with us, that we're all navigating complexity. But complexity has had a lot of science behind it, and a lot of minds have tried to empirically test and define complexity. And there's multiple ways that we define complexity. So, again, wicked problem is a construct. It's a useful construct. It's a not useful whatever you want to make of it. It is just a construct. It's just something that can help us think about things in that way.
And I think people in sort of wider discourse, popular conversation, when they say wicked problem, I think what they mean is something that's hard for them to get footing into, something that seems overly complex, and hard to understand. Which I think is a perfectly reasonable sort of functional way of thinking about it.
But Riddle and Weber, they were talking about it has multiple stakeholders, it has multiple perspectives, different people see the problem totally differently. So it's hard to disagree with that. That's sort of a priori almost. And some problems are not really solvable. You again, you ameliorate it, or you lessen it, or you take the edge off a little bit.
Yeah.
But in terms of like using language like, at what point does a wicked problem become a tamed problem? That's almost allocating a level of specificity and precision to the paper that does not exist.
Right, and here's what there are two things that came to mind when you were saying that. One is, you can say global poverty is a wicked problem because it's a big problem, it's hard to solve.
Yeah.
But I can also say feeding 5 huge dogs in a small space is a wicked problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's all sort of relative to that.
Well, and there's also something that's a very interesting idea called the law of computational equivalence, which a guy named Wolfram came up with, and that talks about, well, something big like homelessness might seem like it's computationally more complex than something small like family dynamics or something like that.
Right.
In a world that is super fractal, right? Something that's small doesn't mean that it's not hyper complex, right? And something that's big doesn't mean that it's more complex.
Right.
They could have equivalent complexities.
Yeah.
And so measuring complexity based on size or scale, or the size of the problem. So the social problems are really complex, but family dynamics are not.
Right.
You can have tremendous complexity in a conversation between 3 people. You could have just massive complexity, or 3 bodies that are interacting with each other of any kind in physics or something like that. So.
Well, and just to finish this up, the last part of the question about it being tamed, I mean, I think when I thought about that part of the question, to me, it's tamed when you've taken the time to understand the system that's created it and led to 100%. It, and you have a footing into it. That to me is when it's I would consider it tamed, from my perspective.
Yeah, and again, like, to me, a far more useful world is the science of complexity, where we look at something and we go, wow, that's really complex. We're seeing intelligence emerge out of ant colonies, and yet none of the parts of the colony has that level of intelligence. So where is the intelligence coming from?
Right.
And then we study it and we learn and we make all these assumptions, and those assumptions turn out to be wrong. And wow, for 2,500 years we've been wondering about these bird flocks and ant colonies and all these kinds of things, and then we discover, by accident or by thoughtfulness, we discover, oh, actually there's these 3 simple rules that are governing, that the little ants or the little birds are following, and that leads exactly to this emergent property. Well, then the question is that still complex? Now that we know the underlying simple rules, is it still complex? And that relationship between complexity and simplicity is something we find over and over and over again.
Right.
From a complexity standpoint, yes, there's still complexity because those little agent interactions are leading to something kind of unexpected, surprising, and emergent. But from a cognitive perspective, we sort of go, actually, well, that's really interesting. It's not actually that complex. It's actually pretty simple. And that simple set of rules explains that emergent behavior. So what's complex?
Yeah.
It is complex that there are collective dynamics, and there's a lot of them. That's complex. But it's not like hard to understand anymore. It's not hard to fathom.
Right.
Right.
The sense of it.
And in that sense, I think complexity is a far better sort of tool set than this construct of wicked problems.
Right. I think that's right.
And we used it, to be fair, we used it in the subtitle of a book many years ago, and that's become very popular and used a lot in the systems thinking field.
Yeah.
I guess I probably maybe wish I hadn't used wicked problems.
Well, but it's okay because that's what people are talking about.
Yeah.
And also, I know Riddle and Webber's from 1973. I read it when I was a grad student.
Yeah.
I know that,
but
did. I do think that the 9 characteristics have actually become, in my sense, a way for people to understand complexity. Like if all 9 of those things are present, you've got a complex problem.
Yeah, you've got something that's relatively difficult to solve. Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, Kevin, you got more than you asked for. Okay, our next question comes from Henny. The question is, I was thinking about love reality. This is a good one. Sometimes reality, they're all good. Sometimes reality is not what you prefer. For example, when you are in an abusive relationship, when you are a citizen of a country with an autocratic leader, or in a job that opposes your personal values. There's nothing to love about those realities, but what should you do? Should you adapt to this reality or see it for what it is and try to change it?
This is a great question. It's a question we get a lot. The love reality loop is basically, you have a mental model, your mental model over here, and you have reality, and the idea is that we kind of make sure that we test our mental model in reality and get feedback in the form of information, and then adapt our mental model to reality rather than changing reality to our mental model. So we fit our mental model to reality rather than fitting reality to our mental model, which is also called confirmation bias. So when we say love reality, what we're saying is love reality more than your mental model.
Yes.
Right? Love reality so much that you really genuinely, curiously want to discover what's going on.
Understand.
Not just go with your first, take on it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And believe it or not, that's a pretty common thing to do, confirmation bias. It's incredibly common, one of the most common. So the 2 most common biases, reality bias and confirmation bias, have to do with preferencing our mental model over reality.
Yes.
So love reality just means don't do that. Love reality. It doesn't mean when horrible things are happening, I love horrible things. No, it just means the best way to change horrible things from happening is understand the dynamics and the structures that are driving those horrible things.
I think part of the implication of the question is accepting reality, when what we're saying is not that. We're saying see reality for what it is.
For what it is.
Change your thinking to the degree that you can, feedback it, and then change it again. Because in all of Henny's examples, all of them bad, the closer you are to understand the reality of your situation, the more likely you are to understand it systemically and change it. A
great example, an abusive relationship with like a narcissist or something like that. What a narcissist is going to do is try to get you to not see what they're doing.
Yes.
Right? So they'll be talking about something over here, but really the game that they're playing is over here.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so you'll be fooled by what we're talking about. No, the narcissist is doing this thing over here. It's like a shell game.
Right.
So if you don't understand that, you're going to keep responding to over here instead of being like, oh, the jig is up over here, right? The game is actually being played over here. And so I'm going to, now knowing that reality, I can respond which usually involves not responding, by the way.
Sometimes,
so it's definitely not accepting reality in the sense that you're like, oh, terrible things are happening before my eyes. I guess I just have to accept it because I'm supposed to love reality. It's more understanding reality, and because you understand it deeply, you can do something about it that will work.
You ready for the next question? How can inanimate objects take perspectives? I understand perspectives don't require literal eyeballs and can be abstract, but in the case of an inanimate object, isn't any perspective taken by an inanimate object really just a person with a brain imagining that perspective?